Go. Hello and welcome back, Power App enthusiasts, to the Power App tutorial channel. This video is going to be a remastered series of our creator table in the Dataverse. This is going to be focusing on only the shelter table. So we're going to create all these columns in the Dataverse, from the shelter ID all the way to the shelter types. I want you to take note of the numbered column for the shelter capacity. And also the shelter types has horse, small farm animal, and livestock, so it has multiple types. So we're going to create this table in the Dataverse, but before we begin, if you're new here, hit that subscription button, add that notification bell so you can stay updated when we come up with new videos, and also give the video a thumbs up if you learn something new. All right, if you guys are ready, we're going to create this table in the Dataverse, and one special thing we're going to do today too, we're also going to import all this data. So we're going to do this, we're going to walk with me step by step with creating these tables and importing all this data. So hope you guys are excited. Let's get into the video, and I'll switch over to the Dataverse and then we'll start creating our tables. All right, so we're in make.powerapps.com, and this is where we are going to be creating our Dataverse tables. But we're not going to use the tables tab because we need to be following the software development lifecycle. We're going to be creating all our packages and applications inside our solution. So switch to the solutions tab. And once you're there, hit on new solution. And I'm going to name this solution shelter solution. So short and simple, that's going to be the name of our solution. And for publishers, I'm going to pick a publisher we've already used before. So if you're already following me, you know we've created publishers. So I'm going to use our animal shelter demo publisher. And that looks good. So just hit create. Now, if you want me to show you how to create a new publisher, feel free to leave a comment in the tag and I can give you a link to do that. But we are trying to create our tables and go ahead and populate it with data. So I want to make this video as short as possible. Okay, so our solution has been created, and I'm just going to go, we can see we have 0 tables. So let's create a new table by hitting on the new tab and go to tables and then click on tables to start creating our new table. Okay, so I want you to fill in the shelter information for the display name. You can name it whatever you want. I chose shelter informations. And once you fill that in, the shelter information is actually going to populate dynamically. So just leave that as the plural of your shelter information. And then under description, I put store shelter information in Dataverse. And once that's done, on the properties tab, I want you to click on the primary column tab. And under display name, we're going to change the name. So we're going to call it the ID for, so if you go into the table, as you can see, we have a shelter ID, and that's going to be our ID. You can see it looks unique. So this is going to be our primary key. So let's go back, and for the name, instead of name, we're going to put in shelter ID. Now I put a space on mine. You don't have to put a space in yours. I'm just trying to make sure that I don't have a clash in my columns because I've created this table before. So leave it shelter ID and then hit save. So remember, the primary column should have shelter ID and the property should look like this. And then we hit save to create our table with our first column. And as you can see, our table has been created called shelter information. And I'm going to move straight to the columns tab. There are different ways to do this. So if you click the drop down here, you can see the columns tab and move straight to the columns tab. So I guess we're just going to use that for now, but there are different ways to do it. And then under the columns tab, we're going to start creating our other columns. So if we open back our shelter table in Excel, the next column is supposed to be the shelter name. So let's create that real quick. And to create that, once you're in the column field, click on New Column. And under Display, right, so under Display Name, I put shelter name with a space. Like I said, I've created this before, so I'm trying to avoid clashes. You don't have to put the space in it. And then under description, I put simple name of shelters for description. For data type, leave it as single line of text, because if you go to the table, as you can see, it's not really that much data for the shelter name. So let's just leave it as single line of text. And then for formats, leave it as text. Behavior, leave it as simple. Required, optional, that's fine. And let's hit save to create our second column. And while that has created, the next column we need to create is going to be our shelter location. So same process, you go to new column, and then under display, enter shelter location. All right, so I'm back and I named it shelter location with a space. And then for description, just simply the address of shelter. And for data type, we are going to modify this. So it says single line of text. We're going to modify this and make this. So hit the side drop down, and instead of single line of text, hit text area. And that will change the format to text area. And leave the behavior the way it is. Required, optional is fine. But under advanced options, I want you to hit the drop down for advanced options and change this max character to make it 300. Okay, so we should have shelter location up top, and under advanced, we should have 300. And the reason why we need that 300 is if you go back to the shelter location row, as you can see, the numbers are not that long, but we might have a new shelter location added, and it might have the states and zip code added to it. So I'm just accounting for that, and then I just made it 300. So once that's done, let's hit save to create our third column. And the next column we need to create is going to be the shelter manager. So going back to our table, click on new column, same process. And under display name, so under display name, I put in shelter manager, and for description, I simply put name of manager. For data type, we're gonna leave it a single line of text. There's not really that much data. Leave format the same, behavior the same, and required optional, and then hit save to create our fourth column. And for our fifth column, so for our fifth column, we have shelter capacity, and this is going to be a number field, as you can see. It's going to be a number field. So shelter capacity is going to be the name of our column. I'm just going to change the display name. Okay, so the display name is shelter capacity with a space, and the description is max capacity of the shelter. And then under data type, we are going to pick number, leave it as whole number, and formats should be none, behavior simple, required optional, everything looks good. Hit save. to create our fifth column. And let's open the Excel spreadsheet again. So remember, our final column is going to be shelter types. And I said this is going to be a choice column, but as you can see, it has multiple choices. So this is going to be a special choice column. So hit on new column, and we are going to, display name is going to be shelter types. All right, so I named it shelter types, and the description is types of animals in the shelter. And like I said, this is going to be a choice column. So hit the data type, and this time around, choose the choice column. So under choice, click choice again. Leave the behavior as simple, leave required optional, leave searchable on, and make sure to click selecting multiple choices is allowed, because remember, we have multiple choices, so make sure to click that. And then for where it says synchronize with global choice, change that to no. And what happens when you do that is we have to create our choice field inside our column, and that's what we're going to do right now. So for the first choice field we have is, let's see, we have horse, small farm animal, livestock. I want to arrange it alphabetically. So I will start with cat, then we'll go to dog. Wait, I just see a bird. So we'll start with a bird first, and then we'll go to the cat, and then the dog. Okay. So bird first. So bird first, and then for the value section, we're going to change that to 1 for the value section. And after that, click on new choice. And the second one is a cat. For the value section, we're going to click 2, and then click on new choice again. Dog is the third one. Value section, make it 3. And then new choice again. And so I'm just going to go ahead and fill it, and then we'll continue, but it's the same process. Okay, see you in a second. All right, so I am back, and we have all 9 choice fields, and everything should look, your column should look exactly like this. So make sure the spelling is actually correct too. So make sure it's small, don't put small and small s and then big E. Make sure the spelling is correct. And then once you're done, hit save to finish our final column for the shelter information table. Okay, so now that we are done creating our columns, let's go back to our table view. And you can go to back using the sidebar. If you click on table, we'll go back to the table view. And I'm going to go to our shelter table so we can open it better. And as you can see, it has some of our columns showing here. But we need to get our data, right? So we need to get our data from shelter table. And my favorite method of getting data is using import data. I try as much as possible to stay away from import data from Excel, because I always get bad results when I use that. But you can test it if you want to, but I'm going to use import data. So click on import data to start importing our shelter table. Okay, so import data is here. Once we're here, just click on browse. Don't need to do anything else, just click on browse and find your table. So we're looking for the shelter table. Okay, so I found my shelter table. So once I select on that, just click open to pull your table in. Okay, so I just skipped a part there because at that part you actually show your Microsoft tenant information. But once you pass the connections part, you will get to this page. And once you get to this page, pick on sheet 1 and you will see your shelter table, and then hit next. And give it time to load. So don't try and skip past this. Let it take its time and load. It's grabbing the necessary table information it needs to do its work. And then do a once over your tables and check just to make sure you don't need to do anything. It looks good. Hit next. And once it loads in, you see 3 tabs. The first one is load to a new table. Since we already created our table, we're going to use load to an existing table. And then we're going to look for our table. So please select a table, click that drop-down menu, and find our shelter table. And the name of our shelter table is shelter information. So I clicked on that so that we can get the table we just created. And once that's selected, we'll try auto map and see if we can auto map it. No such luck. Or it did grab some, so it grabbed shelter capacity, shelter location, shelter manager, shelter name, and shelter types. Nice. All right, so the only thing it didn't grab is shelter ID. So let's just help it out a little. Now, I usually try as much as possible to avoid adding multiple types because sometimes it has issues importing. So for this exercise, I would suggest you click none for this. So note, only shelter ID, shelter capacity, shelter location, shelter manager, and shelter name should be chosen. Make sure you don't choose shelter types. And then after that, click next. And then for here, just click publish. And I usually I go to the edits, and this is where I see if my import is successful. So right now we should have some of our columns showing. This looks like shelter capacity here. Shelter information. I'm gonna hide this because we don't need that. Shelter manager, shelter name. All right, I'm gonna refresh the screen. Nothing yet. Still waiting for our data. And I'm gonna refresh the screen again. And we finally have some data, but we don't have data for our shelter types. So I'm going to grab our shelter table, our shelter column, I mean, and display it. And I usually like to sort, but it looks like it already sorted based on shelter ID, so we should be fine. So my suggestion after you've done importing 5 of the 6 columns is to go through each of them. So for the first one, the shelter types, just click in the space there and you should have a drop down menu that pops up. So the first one that is horse, and then small farm animal, and then livestock. So once you're done with that, just click on any side of the screen and it will populate that. And we're gonna do the same thing for the second column. And this should be cat, dog, small mammal, bird. And I'm calling it off the Excel workbook. I have it open side to side. And then And that's for the second column. For the third column, we have cat, dog, small mammal, and bird. And then Happy Trails has cat, dog, small mammal, and bird, 2. And then finally, Loving Paw has cat and dog. So we have cat and we have dog. And we are done. And you can just hit back because it saves automatically. And you should have all your data for your shelter table. Thank you for joining me in this video. In the next video, we're going to do the same thing for our foster table. All right, see you in the next video. Thank you. Goodbye.